nights.
So you said one of the problems might be that people don't have a purpose. What's your purpose? What's the thing that's driving you to do all the stuff?
Yeah, a couple things. One time, I think it's really useful if you're wondering what your purpose is, if you're struggling with, am I doing the right thing day in and day out? I like to think about a tombstone and mine. And I remember one time I had a crazy dream. And in the dream, I basically walked in the cemetery as one does. And my tombstone came up in front of me. And at the time I was in private equity and it just said like managing director, Cody Sanchez. And I was like, oh, gross. What? That's going to be the legacy? I'm like a managing director at a private equity firm? Kill me. And so I think sort of looking at your tombstone, and it doesn't have to be work related. It could be, father. That might be an incredible thing to have on your tombstone, right? And so that made me change my perspective. And now I hope the legacy is that we bring more humans into ownership. That's the second idea I'm playing around with, which is I think more humans need skin in the game in some way, shape, or form. It's the only way to feel like you have ownership in this world. You have something that you are striving for and building. And most people rent their apartments these days or their houses. Most people work at jobs where they don't have equity in it. Only 15% of humans actually own stocks, which would be equity in companies. By and large, we're becoming a nation or a world of renters when we started, over the last century, just finally becoming owners after years of serfdom. And so that is my mission, is I want more human beings to have their little plot of land, figuratively or physically, because I think that changes the way we look at the world. Then we start to become stewards of it. Then we start to become stewards of our country. You don't burn down the building that you own, right? You fix it, you renovate it, you build on it. So that's what I hope our mission is. I hope when I'm dead, I hope there's a bunch of people that would never have owned anything and now own something, and they get to pass that on to the next generation. Because otherwise, just the guys at the top own everything. I mean, 1 out of 4 houses last year got bought by 3 companies in the US. Single family houses. We don't even own our homes anymore. And so that, I think, needs to change.
So how much is that the thing that drives you versus, I struggle with this myself, figuring out, is it purpose or is it actually money or status or power that are the other?
Or likes on the Instagrams?
Yeah, which, status. And I can convince myself that, there's likes on Instagram. It's important for my parasocial relationship with my audience, which translates to bottom line profit. But who am I kidding? I sometimes ask myself.
Yeah, I think it's easy to, KPIs are just, they're the milestones on a map, right? That get you to a final destination. And so a KPI would be something like likes on your Instagram or social media followers. It's very easy for me to get caught up in the daily or weekly numbers because I'm a numbers person. And so I have to be really, really careful that I zoom out. We do something every week at my company called the Weekly What's Up. And basically I zoom out for a 10-minute segment of our company meeting where I will talk about something really high level. So I'll share a quote from like a book like Jocko Willink's about the honor of leadership and how it sucks to be a leader, but it's also incredible. And then I'll talk about a testimonial from somebody who we helped. And so we'll highlight that. And maybe that testimonial is about like somebody specifically on the team. So I try to zoom out once a week, but for sure, I think at the end of the day, we're selfish, self-interested beings that are trying to continue to survive. If you look at evolution, like that, we need to procreate and we need to survive a certain amount of time. So I think you have to rewire your brain a little bit to not just only focus on you. But there's no doubt about it. I like the ego of it. I think it's super fun seeing our videos go viral. I think it's super fun making money. It's a giant scoreboard, and I think that's what money is at the end of the day. The rich, I don't think, continue to do things for the money. The rich do things because it's a game and they want to win on the scoreboard. That's my take for now.
There's a book I've been reading, or started reading called The Road to Character, where by David Brooks, I think, where he talks about.
I like David.
There are resume virtues, and then there are eulogy virtues. They're the things that you would write on your resume. And then they're the things that people would say at your funeral. And his argument in the book seems to be that the money stuff tends to be not the thing that people would say at your funeral. So how do you think about this balance? Like, again, I'm asking because this is something that I genuinely think about every day. Like this balance between striving for the numbers to go up versus, I don't know, the other things that make up a holistic and well-lived life.
Yeah. Well, my husband and I do, we do biannual bucket list trips, and those are typically something difficult. So we're going to, for instance, go to Mongolia on horseback for 12 days, and we want to meet with this one tribe, a friend of ours. It's one of the last tribes that rides reindeers, like caribous in Mongolia. And so we're going to do a thing that's perceivably hard. We're going to do it together, which I think is really important. And I think when we do like one or two of those kind of things a year, so I hiked, Mount Baker. We're also going to go do this exploration with whale sharks with a friend of mine who does National Geographic whale shark tagging. Yeah. And I imagine that if somebody was to give a eulogy of us at some point, there will be hopefully that we're 70, 80 years old doing bizarre things like that. Nice. And so I think I don't know how to live a really sporadic, spontaneous life. Like I get so wrapped up in work and doing the daily grind, maybe like a lot of people do. It's hard for me to go do the wild things continuously. So there's a very simple thing that seems to work for me, which is just I sort of schedule the ridiculous. Yeah. And that sounds like you shouldn't do it, but some of my favorite stories to write or read about are like Ernest Shackleton, right? Like oh, so good. He wrote the best job description of all time, which was, you've definitely seen it. It's a little paper cutout, and it basically says, men needed for a dangerous mission. And it says things like, survival unlikely, return questionable, pain absolute. And he received thousands of people that applied for this job. And I think the reason is because we want that crazy mission, right? Like we want to be the Indiana Jones in the next film in some way, shape, or form. And so I don't know how to live a big, huge life except to have experiences. And so I don't know, do you do anything like that where you try to go on one or two wild adventures a year?
Less so wild adventures, but more. So I'm also a big fan of scheduling the bucket list items.
Yeah.
But my version of a wild adventure was I was like, oh, it's on the bucket list to go on a fishing trip. So I went on a fishing trip 2 weeks ago, and that was very nice.
Yeah, I love that.
But it's not been as wild.
What do you want on your eulogy?
I think I also thought about the tombstone thing a couple of years ago, and I landed on good father, good husband, and inspirational teacher. And I realized that for me, if I could teach people, that's a thing that I think I would love for people to say at my funeral. Like, yeah, he was a nice guy and all that, nice to his family and friends, blah, blah, blah. But like, yeah, helped. If I could have the sort of impact on someone that Tim Ferriss had on me through his stuff, where it nudged me on a completely different kind of life path that I would have been otherwise, then I think that would be pretty sick. Like if someone leaves their job to start a business because they vibed with my stuff, or someone starts a YouTube channel that takes off because they vibed with my stuff, like, things like that. Or even someone, does better in their exams because they vibe with my stuff and that helps them kind of live their dreams. That to me is like the thing that I want to do for now. Yeah. So
wait, I have two questions. One, do you care if people perceive you as a nice guy? Is that important to you?
Yeah.
Why?
Oh, good question. Why? Why is it important that people perceive me as a nice guy? Probably because I have a fundamental need to be liked and admired and appreciated and stuff.
Yeah, interesting.
And yeah.
Yeah, I like to double tap on the nice thing because I think it's lovely to want to be nice because a world full of assholes doesn't sound good for anybody. Nobody wants that. But I would rather be respected than liked. I would rather, my best teachers weren't just nice, right? They like push you a little bit, which maybe you could do in a nice way. So I'm always curious if people, now it's hard to not always be perceived as nice because you get a lot of pushback on it. And maybe it's a story I'm telling myself too, but I'm always curious on that idea of nice and does it really matter? Maybe you could be kind, but you have to be nice.
Yeah, but I think by nice, I mean kind rather than like nice has a lot of like other things brought up in like being a doormat and all that kind of stuff is associated with nice. But yeah, when I say nice, I mean it as like just a sum of like kind, good person, thoughtful, considerate kind of stuff.
Yeah, I could work on all of those things more for sure.
I don't know. I think you come across as pretty nice.
I also was hugely influenced by Tim Ferriss. We're actually in the same group chat with him, and I remember when our mutual friend Sri put me into that group chat, and I saw that Tim was in it. I was like, I went and texted him. I'm like, I'm not going to do anything weird, but I am so excited because Tim Ferriss was, I think, one of the first people for a lot of us that made us feel like we could actually architect our lives.
Yeah.
Nobody told me that before Tim.
Yeah.
Everybody was like, no, here's how you do it. And you wear the suit and you do the thing. And then I think he was the first one. It wasn't necessarily that I only wanted to work 4 hours. It was like, oh, wait, but I could choose. So I think that's incredible. And so I think the other thing to ponder too, which I think about too, is what do you want to become known for? And also doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, we'll be dust, completely unremembered, just like the greatest emperors of all time. Yep. And so, I mean, you can't even remember the last name of most of the greatest people who ever ruled the planet. And so at some point, I think perhaps none of it matters, but do it anyway.
Yeah. Nice. I kind of think, finding joy in the journey.
Yeah.
And having a destination in mind, sure, but recognizing that, from all of the people I've spoken to, all the stuff I've read, it's just like no one ever finds happiness at the end of the journey. They find it en route. And so, great. Let's try and, coming back to that point of enjoy the present day while we're working towards that destination.
Agree. Totally.
So we're in Goldman Sachs right now.
Yeah.
What happened next in the career?
Yeah. So after Goldman, well, basically, so I'm divorced and remarried, but at that time I was dating somebody at Goldman, and he was leaving to go to a job in Dallas. So I wanted to really continue the investment banking thing and go to New York and go international, but he was moving, and so I ended up moving with him, which maybe is one of the things I regret at some point, but it ended up working out. So I was leaving Goldman. The only option at Goldman was—
Sorry, can I just double tap on that?
Please tell me.
Uprooting your life for the sake of a relationship.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Well, I have a bias there, right? Because it didn't work out great.
Yep.
So take that with a grain of salt. But I think more important, if you uproot your life for somebody into another life that you want to live, incredible. But I think be really careful about uprooting yourself for another into a life you don't want to live. And so in this instance, I had always wanted to work internationally, and I had wanted to build big businesses. And instead, I moved to Dallas, Texas. I get a huge house with a white picket fence and a country club membership. Poor guy didn't stand a chance, right? Like that was just not part of the vision of my future that I wanted. And I think he thought I would change, and I thought that he was okay with who I was. And the disconnect lay in there. So now when I think about a relationship like with my husband now, we're very big on what is the vision we both want out of life? It's not just, are we compatible as humans and do we like each other, but do we want the same big things? Because if you, Ollie, really want kids and to live in London and to do X, Y, Z, and your person is tied to Bangladesh and wants no children, then it kind of doesn't matter how in love the two of you are, because the lives that you want will continue to pull at the seams. And so I think be really cautious about this idea of, I'm just really compatible and I'll drop everything for this other human, which leads to resentment. At least it did for me. So I wouldn't do that again.
Okay.
And yet I've moved many times for my husband, and we go through cycles. So we'll talk about them. Like for the 3-year period we're in right now, this is my cycle. I'm building this business that requires a lot of travel. He travels with me often, and we're building it together. For the 3-year cycle prior, he was in the military. And so we had to be based wherever he was based. And so we had this vision of the future that was combined. And even now we work a lot, and we try to not use the word sacrifice ever. We say we make decisions, or we prioritize, and we prioritize for the ultimate vision, which is we want to live this big life and leave this big empire behind us. And we want to build something so big that our kids can come into it. I'm hiring my father now. I hire a bunch of my friends into the business, and I want to fold our work and our life into one. And so we're willing to do things to achieve that.